Yeah, I'm very happy to have this awesome panel to shed some light on this topic. Welcome with a warm applause, Deepali Nanja, Erika Brodnock, Hansi Hansmann, and Ghislain Terry. So, Deepali, you are the co-founder of Alma Angels and partner at Speed Invest. I think everybody here knows this company.
Woohoo.
What would you most love to see change in our startup ecosystem within the next 3 years?
I think this is a topic for 1 hour. I'm precisely
Cut it short. We need to catch a plane.
I definitely don't think we need another conference like this in 3 years, hopefully, where diversity is embedded in the DNA of every VC fund. Female founders are being funded without any biases, and we have lost lots and lots of female VCs, and lots of women on boards, and lots of women in top roles where we're not really discussing diversity, and we're not really discussing quotas, and yeah, that's what I want to see.
Great, that's an easy target, I think. Hansi, you are Austria's leading business angel, and I read you changed the game here in Austria for startup investments and also for the startup ecosystem. You're also CEO of Hans Women Group. What do you consider your most important impact as a super angel?
Well, I would say the most important thing I'm doing is I'm supporting entrepreneurs, male or female, and in fact that's exactly what is my ultimate goal. And I think it's very easy. It's very important to create a win-win situation. I don't think about the money I've invested. My main goal is to make the founder successful, because if the founders are successful, I will win anyway. And I do that applying my values like being transparent, open communication, trying to find win-win situations, fair deals, and I mean, that should have an impact.
Hopefully, I think so. Erika, you are co-founder and CEO of KinHub, a startup that offers personalized employee well-being support for life's key journeys, helping people be more present at home and more productive at work. And you're also co-founder of Extend Ventures, where you're leading research that aims to understand and diversify access to venture capital and innovation finance for ethnically diverse entrepreneurs. And you wrote a book called Better Venture. How dangerous do you think are all these gaps inside and outside our ecosystem, especially in times of AI?
I think that the gaps that we have in the ecosystem at the moment are particularly dangerous because of AI. I think that AI has the power of scaling what we teach it to scale. And if we're only teaching AI to kind of build models and systems based on white male entrepreneurs that are currently being backed at, in some cases, 83% of the market, will run a dangerous game of multiplying lots of the biases that exist in society at the moment and excluding some of those most marginalized communities, thereby exacerbating the negative effects to those communities. So I think that it's really important that, as Deepali and Hansi have just said, we make sure that we are investing in a diverse spread of entrepreneurs so that they are able to have their place in creating the future.
Do you think there's enough time to change before AI really changes everything by itself and we don't have any say in it anymore?
So I think that, if I'm honest, the generative models that are being built at the moment and the entrepreneurs that are commanding the largest checks in the market at the moment do all mimic a certain type of founder, and we can't deny that.
Yeah.
I think that we need to make rapid change in order for us to kind of regain some equilibrium in this space and to make sure that we're not exacerbating problems and we are creating solutions.
Thank you. So I'm not really sure how to pronounce this Ghislaine?
Ghislain.
Ghislain.
That's French.
Sorry, Ghislain. So you are an investment manager with European Investment Fund, so a very powerful check writer, or writer of the biggest checks, probably. What is the most important role of IVE in this demanding time?
Broad question. So, yeah, as you know, so European Investment Fund, we are probably in Europe the largest fund of fund investor. For us, we do a lot of other things, but our role in the venture capital market is very peculiar because we've been spearheading the institutional effort to develop the asset class for the last, 25, almost 30 years. So what we try to do, we are an asset manager, so we try to service our clients, so that's implementing what the Commission wants to promote towards innovation, towards support to SMEs, but also impulsing the change, so diversity, but also trends, so going more into deep tech, going more into impact, going more into environmental sustainability, climate change. That's what we do.
Thank you. So let's go to the first topic, the current state of things in the startup ecosystem. So I think we all know it. We have high interest rates are back, inflation is back, the IPO window is mostly still closed, funding decreased by 50%, US investors are not doing big rounds as much as they did in the last years, exit values are down, and so on. What was your personal experience in the past month? What worked, what hasn't, and what changed, Deepali?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen obviously a slowdown in fundraising as well as slowdown in deployment from funds, so we usually have a much quicker fund deployment cycle, and that's elongated. We're taking longer to do deals, us and everybody else. New fund managers are taking longer to raise. And we've spent, time with our portfolio companies to make sure that their runway is extended. We've advised, to reduce your burn. We've advised to prioritize, I guess, quality of investor and cash over valuation. So, we've seen some of those things. Obviously, metrics have become super fashionable again, as opposed to the last few years. There's been a flight to quality, flight away from certain regions and markets. Some of the emerging markets were quite hot, such as Africa, and definitely now you've seen money flows away from those markets because deals were done at really high valuations. So, lots of, I guess, extensions, internal extension rounds as well, and some M&A, which I think there are still more write-downs, portfolio write-downs, etc., still to come.
And what do you think will that do to the X you can achieve? Like how many, if you know, in the past, like 3 or 4X was an average for funds to achieve in valuation?
Wow, that's a really, very tough question, to be honest, because I don't think a lot of write-downs have happened still, right? So in any economic down cycle, it's kind of hard to predict for you because venture is such a long game. We won't know for a few years what the real impact is, to be honest.
That's for sure. Okay, Germany and Austria in 2023 are amongst the European growth lowlights, so I think it hasn't happened very often that both had degrowth in the end, so like lagging behind lots of other countries such as Iceland, Greece, Romania, Croatia, or Portugal, who were leading the pack in Q2. Do you see this reflected in startup activity and VC spending, Ghislain?
Interesting. So 2 sides, I guess, to your questions. In reverse order, yes, we have seen some European venture capital markets maturing. So you mentioned of names, on the back of success stories. So we can have UiPath in Romania, you had Unbible or OutSystems in Portugal, Blue Ground in Greece, and so on and so forth. So I think part of this, we've worked towards creating a stable ecosystem, or at least like an early stage ecosystems in these countries. And I think that's one of the things that EIF does well, together with the local NPI, so National Promotion Agencies and institutions, is really finding, and first in the very early stage, good teams and funding them. So I think probably what happens is on the one side, these ecosystems continue to mature and they show some returns. On the other side, towards Germany and Austria, it's probably these were hype markets, quite maybe inflated, both in terms of valuation. We've seen a lot of momentum investing as well, and I would assume that so it works both ways. Like they were probably on a steady rate or increasing for the emerging markets, and then Germany in particular deflated.
Yeah. What do you think? Which countries are currently offering the best opportunities for founders to start firms?
So I think, well, all across Europe. I mean, we name a few companies. I don't know if maybe we want to dive on some particular geographies, but in Europe, overall, we have a strong level of education. We have engineers, we have technical talents, and we have entrepreneurship everywhere. So for us, it's not so much about, like, is there a better country? It's that we can see major hits, major performing companies everywhere. So of course, if you ask EIF, we are policy driven, so we try to focus a lot on Southern Europe and see mostly to have these markets catch up. But France, Germany, I mean, they are still very strong markets, right? And Nordics, so you will see. I think it's more about the arbitrage in the valuations and how you see them changing over time. You mentioned that probably in the Western market, there's still some corrections to be done. We've seen a lot of down rounds. We also see some cleaning, which is probably good, both in companies and in venture capital funds. So there will be opportunities. And frankly, for me, and well, okay, I'm preaching the gospel here because EIF, we have this leading role, but it's these vintages, not at the end of the crisis, but soon, are usually the best performing vintages. So definitely. I would assume that, if you choose the right venture capital firms, you will make a good return anywhere.
I hope so. In Sifted, I recently read that CE is the region that has a quiet rise of a startup powerhouse. So one of the fastest growing regions for VC funding in Europe. Do you see that at EIF as well? Like, so especially Poland and the Baltics are
Definitely.
really maturing fast?
So Baltics is the obvious example, and well, we have a whole presentation, I hope maybe one day someone at EIF does it, about how to create a venture capital ecosystem. And it comes, from having the good education, from having founders, from having success stories that create then a whole ecosystem of business angels and so on. Baltics, they have it, it's obvious. But we're seeing it now in the rest of traditional Central Eastern Europe and Poland, Romania and so on. It's not at the same scale, but it's emerging. So we are very, very bullish, and I think safety is right. Yeah. You will see more surprises coming from that. And we, again, you can look at EIF's activities. We've funded a lot of early stage GPs out there that are performing quite strongly.
How many of them are women?
That will come. You're pointing, and I hope that we'll discuss the diversity later on in the panel, but that's true that diversity is low so far. I won't hide it.
Thank you. Deepali, do you think founders still need to go west to raise big rounds, like to go to the US to really go to the later stages?
It's interesting because I think US funds just are much larger, right, than a lot of I think the average US fund, seed fund, is like closer to 300 million. Average, I think EU fund is less than half of that, 125 million maybe, and UK is somewhere in the middle. So obviously the fund sizes are much larger, and therefore you can do much larger rounds. And the risk appetite is different. American VCs prefer product market fit or have, placed large emphasis on product market fit. And we, today we were on a call with a free seed company, and we were like, what do you think about monetization? And this company is literally not even incorporated yet, right? Like, how are you going to price your product? When are you going to start making money? So, and I think American VCs do think differently. So I think the risk appetite is different. They just have more capital. In Europe, you are seeing funds like Atomico, Balderton, Dawn, etc., doing much larger rounds. At later stages, to be honest, there's not been that much in the last 18 months later stage activity. That market is quite dry, but these are the big funds that have done the rounds in Europe. But yes, the holy grail, because of the size of market, size of valuation, size of fund, size, growth tends to be America, and exit for capital markets as well.
Yeah, okay. So we are all aware, we just quickly hinted at that topic, of the grueling numbers in VC funding worldwide. Basically, still almost 90% of worldwide venture capital go to all male teams. Erica, as a co-founder of Extend Ventures, could you shed some more light on the specifics?
So the last research report that we pushed out into the ecosystem looked at the UK specifically. We've done some work with Atomico to look at the state of European tech, but the numbers remain the same, and they've remained the same consistently over the last 10 to 15 years now. And that is that investments in women don't really go over around 11%. Investments in all female teams has never really breached 3%.
Yeah.
Investment in all ethnic teams has never breached 2%. Investment in all black teams has never breached 0.25%.
Yeah.
And investment in black female teams is absolutely abysmal at 0.02%.
Wow.
So, you know, the data doesn't lie. I think that we heard you say before that, you know, you're being bullish about markets that you feel have potential.
Yeah.
I feel that female founders and ethnic founders of global majority heritage have potential. We're starting to see a number of unicorns coming from these groups in the States where they are making these investments, and we absolutely need to prioritize these groups in Europe, because if we don't, we are just leaving money on the table. The laws of diminishing returns say that right now we're investing in mediocrity when we're investing in all male teams.
Yeah.
It's likely that the cream of the crop has already been produced. And if you want to make the best returns possible, the only place that you're going to get that is in unexplored markets, not just unexplored regions, but unexplored entrepreneurs as well. And we sit here as female founders, as founders from sort of ethnic backgrounds saying, invest in us, because
Yeah.
actually there are huge opportunities.
Yeah, I always found it interesting because already in 2018, Boston Consulting Group, who is not really a feministic group, published the wonderful report called Why Women-Owned Startups Are the Better Bet.
Yeah.
And they found out that in 2018 already, which should have been improved since then, but hasn't, that teams with at least one female founder had produced double the revenue on one invested dollar than all male teams. And for me, it's just not understandable why these bright analytic guys coming from Harvard, Oxford, Stanford, MIT, you name it, don't invest in those teams, because what investors want to do is make the most money for the LPs, in theory.
I'm glad you added the in theory, because but the behaviour isn't matching the desire at the end of the day. It's been proven time and time again with robust research that is irrefutable.
Yeah,
so
even from Harvard and BCG.
Absolutely.
Like that. I just recently met one team member of BCG and motivated her to do another study on that, because it was already 2018, so I feel bad to cite this because it's too old, but probably will just be the same outcomes. Hansi, I think you invest in different regions. You told me not only the DACH region, but also Spain. And what did you experience there in terms of diverse teams?
Well, I would say the reason why I invest in Spain is because I realized 2 years ago, when we decided that we will give priority to diverse teams, not invest only, but give priority to diverse teams, that it was quite difficult to get deal flow in Austria. And the reason is very simple, and I think that's something everybody should think about. It's not about where you go, it's where you get the deal flow from. For example, my successful founders that exited their companies, all of them are investing in startups. all of them are male founders, or nearly all of them are male founders. They always invite me to co-invest, and I co-invest with them, so I have again male teams. So I had to change that. I hired an investment manager in Spain, a lady that I know for a long time, and I knew she has only female deal flow. And that's the reason why we are in Spain. That's the main reason why we are in Spain. So we did, I think, 6 investments in the last 12 months. All of them have diverse teams. 5 are female-led startups. So for me, it's much easier. I'm not sure whether it's especially Spain and it's so much easier there. I think it has to do with whom you speak and where you get the deal flow from.
Exactly. I talked to her over lunch, Helena, and hosted by Dipali. And I asked her, because you told me this in our talk before the panel, and she told me, I asked her how many female founders, or what the percentage of female founders is in Spain. She told me 30%, is that right? So it's less than in Germany, where it's 37. And you told me that you almost only see diverse teams from your Spanish activities. And yeah, the obvious solution is that you need to really source them right. So what you just said about the female ecosystem, and so we meet quite often I think in Berlin, and I think what we all experience here is that this female ecosystem that has been developing in the last 5 years is small, but it's so strong because we all help each other with everything. So it's not, no matter whether you get back something from the same person, you just put something in there and you get something out of there. So what do you think we can learn, or you guys can learn from Helena in terms of deal sourcing?
Well, I mean, as far as I know, she's in many female associations. She's very active there. She talks to a lot of people. She's very well known. And she, whenever there are female founders, they contact her. So you have to look for these people, for these persons who have that deal flow if you want diverse deal flow. If you don't do that and you get the normal deal flow with the normal sources you have normally, you will not have so much diverse deal flow.
Yeah.
That's quite easy.
Yeah, it's about expanding your network and thinking out of the box. And, you know, some of that, obviously, we do at Speed Invest as well. We have a type form on the website, you know, which is open. Obviously, I'm, I think, the only partner at a VC fund in Europe with a focus on female founders. We've developed a micro GP program to support, you know, 50% of that is to go to female GPs. And to be honest, our check sizes are very small, and funds like EIF are really here who can make a huge difference. But going beyond and sourcing at accelerators where a lot of women, you know, come, having relationships with funds like Fund F and OXO, and, you know, lots of female GPs now building their own funds. So really thinking beyond and looking at other networks.
Yeah, so just now, the two of us were talking about exactly how to find the female founders before the panel, and luckily you said what most men say, okay, they're just not enough, which is not true, because there's 20% female founders all over the world, and they only get like 10% altogether at least of VC. You could now say, okay, they're found in the wrong spaces and so on, but we learned they do 2 times the revenue on the invested dollar than male teams, so there's no reason. And I don't think, I think you are a male ally of all the female founders, but I want to come to the new financing program, Invest EU, where you say on your website that it has a strong focus on female representation in the VC and PE ecosystem. So what exactly are you doing there? And what do you expect to change in what time frame?
Okay. So first, I want to, I mean, I was talking, so we are a fund-of-fund investor. We don't invest directly in companies. So, so for us, when we say there are not enough women and it's hard to find talent, it's more on investor level. And
exactly.
I mean, your point still stands. There's much more that meets the eye, and it's also about bringing people not in the industry into the industry, but there's also a much longer effort around inspiring young women, education, starting with education, and inspiring them to be either founders or investors. And that will take more time, but we don't have that time.
I really feel bad to interrupt you, but you know, in all of Europe, I think more girls are successfully finishing high school and they do much better degrees. So, and there's no lack of women in economics studying, and mostly in some countries they are all, also more women studying economics than men, and most of the CEOs or GPs are definitely people who have studied.
I'm not a GP, but getting
Okay,
there soon.
partners. Yeah, run. This is not the lack. So
No, and so, okay, going to what EAF is doing, we want to make more space for that. So what we're doing first, leading by example. EAF, so as you probably know from the 1st of Jan, our chief executive is a woman. We have a chairwoman chairing our board. We are promoting internal diversity and inclusion. Obviously, I think at EAF level, we are probably very close or at gender parity. It is true, I must say, in the investment team, we are actually close to it, but not there yet, and we're working on it. Now, we try to do a lot in our investment activities. I think we are having a more benevolent approach. I know a lot of things were discussed in the prior panels, you know. We are not fixing quotas yet, probably, but we are tracking it very closely. We look at our existing portfolio, we embed it in the diligence that we are doing, and to be frank, we are looking at the evolution, and I guess from our mandators, but that's, I don't want to commit on that, but if that's not moving as fast as we want, then we'll act on it. Then we actually also proactively want to help set up female founders funds. So funds led by women, but also in particular looking at bridging the gap for female entrepreneurs. You don't see them yet. We are mostly focusing, and you mentioned InvestEU as a gender criteria. So we want that teams are diverse, but it's not the level that you would expect for the time being. That being said, we will be doing, and we're actually quite advanced stage with a few teams. So we will start with that. We want that this, emulates the market, creates more talents, funds more success stories, and build on that.
I read in your 2022 annual report that I've invested 0.5 billion out of 11 billion, which is 5%, into a total of 15 funds that complied with InvestEU gender criteria. So only 15 funds that comply?
So I guess first, thanks for reading our annual report. Not everybody does that, so thanks for the interest.
I do.
So I would say 15, the number 15 is correct in terms of fund. I think where we want to, so the 0.5%, it's factually correct. I think it's important to see that out of these 11 billion, not everything is venture. It's half of it is private equity, and then, like venture is much smaller. Actually, most of these 15 funds are from the venture capital arm, because then we do buyouts, we do private debt, we do infrastructure.
But my question was, are there only 15 funds in all of Europe that fulfill those investment criteria? Okay.
No, not all. No.
And so why is it only 15 funds you invested in? So shouldn't there be more effort in order to bring more diversity, in order to make Europe a better place, not only to live, but also performing against those countries like China, India, America, Russia?
No, this is a very valid comment. I want to highlight that we have plenty of mandates to invest in specific verticals, to invest in specific geographies where, unfortunately, at the moment, there's not even diversity. So we would happily and we would favor diverse teams over non-diverse teams, but we also have a duty to develop these markets, these verticals. And if we don't find diverse teams, in all transparency, we will invest in the best teams we see out there. We hope it's changing.
Okay.
But sorry.
You want, please jump in.
Happy to send
Jump in,
you.
ladies.
I met like 100 funds at least, female GPs.
Yes.
Happy to send them over to EIF if it's of interest.
But perhaps you can make some suggestions.
Of course, no, we're always open to suggestions. I mean, but bear in mind that we have plenty of activities, and I'm not the best ambassador of diversity, obviously, here, being on this panel, being a white
But
male.
you can be a very good male ally. I think men can play a very key role in the ecosystem.
So we give you the heat and you take it to the IF. So.
No, we do, and frankly, so we impose the heat on ourselves, and we want to make our teams, our GPs, and in particular the non-diverse teams, feel the heat as well.
Yeah.
And it will change.
Great, yeah. Looking forward to that. Erica, you wanted to...
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that we need to take some of the onus back on finding and sourcing. We've literally just heard from Hamzi here that the key to sourcing diversity is to look for it properly, if you see where I'm coming from. And so if we look in emerging markets and we only rely on internal networks, etc., there is a propensity to only find companies that look and feel like the networks that are looking for them, if that makes sense at all. And so I would really want to understand just a little bit more from you what you're doing to look that would mean that you might find some of the diversity that you know we need to find.
Perhaps, yeah. Do you want to answer
but
this now, or you want to?
I did speak to LT, coming to EIFs. They are trying to do a lot.
Yes.
I know that even for us, they do tell us that diversity is very important, because they're big investors in Speed Invest.
Yes.
And it's getting more and more important, to be honest. All of the ESG topics, including diversity, and LT herself is running this program to help support emerging managers with a focus on diversity.
Okay.
But I can tell you that all of the investment team is committed
I would
to
like
that.
to, because Deepali has to catch her plane, and I want to change the subject, so I would love to discuss further on, but perhaps you can do this later. So could both the economic downturn and the poly-crisis, which has just become bigger with the war in Israel having started, could both these developments be unfair advantages for female founders who are known to have a more careful approach to starting up and are more likely to found with impact business models?
Not necessarily. I would assume that female founders maybe are able to deal better with crisis in general, because they are not that aggressive, not that offensive going out there, thinking longer, twice about something. Maybe they will be better prepared in crisis with early stage startups. I think it might be a very good period for females to start their startups now in that period, even taking into account that maybe 2024 is going to be worse than 2023.
So I think there are a few things that we need to consider when we're looking at this and the opportunities that exist at the moment. I appreciate that in economic downturns we have cleaning, but I think that what we're experiencing now is more around return to status quo. And I think that there's a difference. I think that there are a number of female-founded businesses that are either being sold prematurely or failing in the current market because diversity isn't seen to be a priority in the current market, unfortunately. And that's resulting in them being excluded from the market rather than simply cleansed because they aren't strong enough startups. The data shows that female-founded teams raise less than all male teams. And so they have less money to survive this kind of market, and they tend to raise at lower valuations as well, so they are much more vulnerable than their male-founded counterparts. The same applies to ethnically founded companies as well. And so if in comparison to a company that had 49 million just before the crisis started, I have only been able to raise 2 million, for example. It's not a test of whether I'm a good business owner or the company was strong that I live or die through this economic downturn. It's a test of who will give me money. And if people won't invest in these markets because they're seen to be more risky in a risky environment, even though data says that they're not, we end up in a vicious cycle that means that we return to the status quo and all of the good work that has been being done for the last 7 to 10 years is undone overnight in one fell swoop. And I think that we have to be realistic about some of the DEI washing that's going on with funds and investors at the moment, where they will say, yes, I'm investing in diversity, but they know that actually some of the investments that are being made are made at such a minuscule proportion of the investments that are being made in identical companies that are all male-led, that we're almost setting people up to fail.
I wouldn't be that pessimistic. I think the lionesses have risen, so we won't stop fighting, will we? What do you?
We won't stop fighting, but it is just a difficult fight. And I guess I think that someone needs to raise this side of the argument. Otherwise, it feels as though any female businesses that do fail in this market are doing so because they weren't good enough.
Yeah, okay. So 3 minutes left. I promise to be on time. Which sectors do you think will be hottest in 2024 and beyond? Hansi.
Well, I mean, it's mainly climate tech and health tech, I think. And, well, AI is not a sector, but I think AI will play a major role in all sectors, and even existing startups, and I think they're already doing, should think very well about their business model, whether AI will not change it totally. Mm-hmm. But I think it will be climate tech and health tech, and that together with AI.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Same, exact.
Same.
So what about,
Agreed.
I saw EIF did a conference on space tech recently. So what do you think about defense tech, given the crisis, and space tech? So
we've been promoting space tech and new space for quite some time. So that's one of the areas where we feel also, because it's quite complicated, it's highly risky, so we feel that we need to make a push, found new teams, hopefully diverse teams, and promote the sector. So we are bullish on it. I mean, then the defense part is, you know, as a public investor, is a very delicate topic. We want to promote it. The dual use is something, you know, in terms of compliance, in terms of morality that we want to be careful about. So we are promoting it. Actually, a lot of the companies are helping, like you can say, there's a lot of applications in Ukraine, but we don't want to pride ourselves on having companies that actually do dual use so far. But we are certainly supporting it. And you know, actually, very happily, space tech is more diverse than people think. It's probably like on the face of it not, but I can think like the last two investments, so one is being closed and the last one I closed in a co-investment, because we do co-investment / direct, we're actually with female co-founder, or female CEO and a female co-founder. So
to close the panel, I think money is power, and do you think the industry is putting enough money into climate tech, so the VC industry as a whole? So given that this is our biggest problem, so if we want to reach 1.5, we have 5 more years, given the CO2 emissions that the world has now. And if we want to reach 2.0,
Not enough,
temperature,
sorry.
then we need 23 years. But then we still have 23 years, which is both really not much. So question to, well, basically the investors, is the industry putting enough money, in brackets power, into the biggest problem of our time?
I think we have many big problems, but of course climate is very big, and we need a few trillion, to be honest. We haven't scratched the surface. And I think in Europe we have a bigger problem because we don't usually fund hardware. You know, we are against funding hardware, and to be really making change in anything, including health tech and climate tech, ultimately you have to fix the hardware. Otherwise you can't really change anything. So we have to get over that hurdle and invest into climate hardware to really make change. And I think we need to start that.
Run.
Thank you, everybody.
Does any one of you want to comment on the last question as well?
It can't be enough money that is invested in climate tech. Whatever it is, it has to be 2 times or 3 times or 4 times more. It's the biggest problem. It's not one of the big problems.
No, it's
by
the
far the
biggest
biggest
we will all
problem
die.
of that world.
Yeah.
I mean, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything more to say other than investing in more in disparate places as well, so that each region is responsible for making sure.
So this is our mandate to you know, the
But, yeah.
government, including EIF.
This is an absolute priority for us. I mean, we have a climate roadmap for the IB group, and that includes EIF. We are Paris aligned. We invest both in climate tech and in infrastructure for the rollout of the climate tech and, well, the energy transition. This is
Great
a big
stuff.
topic for us.
Thank you all. Thank you.